Well, hello all. I want to tell you today about what I learned from allowing my very old cat to die peacefully at home. So I think I'd rather cut right to the final moment. He passed away in bed with me, as he always used to sleep in my arms. He was the smallest spoon. We used to spoon in the bed together. Between him, he would sleep between me and a hot water bottle, and that is how he passed away. It happened at midnight about 4 days ago, and I was woken at about 11 o'clock by there was loud noise in the neighborhood, and thankfully, it woke me up, and he noticed I was awake, so he meowed. He went, meow. So I stroked him for about 20 minutes, and then when I stopped stroking him, he meowed again, so I carried on stroking him for another 10 or 15 minutes. And then what happened, we thought, oh, well, let's just go back to sleep. I heard it was now close to midnight. I heard the clock strike midnight. And then I felt him just spasm about 4 or 5 times, just not violent, not painful or anything, but just I felt, ooh, that's something new. And then it was almost like his breathing had been placed onto manual control, because he would just breathe in, and now I was counting the seconds between the breaths, so about 3 seconds, and each breath it seemed to be longer, 5, 10, till eventually he was taking only about 3 faint breaths a minute, and then he just had the ability to stop breathing. I suppose he was getting weaker from fewer breaths, and that was it. It was as peaceful as that. And I was really super glad to have been with him, to love him, to comfort him, to have him in his usual environment, which was in bed with me. All the usual things. There was no stress. It was all the same warm, loving, kind, blessed environment that he'd always grown up and lived in. So there was no stress. So I guess it all did work out okay. I mean, what's the alternative? You take them to the vet. The vet says there's nothing more we can do for them, or maybe we can try some mixed treatment that'll prolong the days, maybe make them a bit worse maybe add a few more days to their lives, and then they'll give you the injection and then put your pet down, and then you'll take it home, and it's all very controlled. And I will say it takes a lot out of your system to watch your pet slowly dwindling away. So I'm sure that for a busy person, or for if you don't want, there is a stress on your system to spend whatever amount of time. You see, you have no control over that dying process. But I'd seen my wife pass away 1.5 years ago, and it was a peaceful, loving, blessed, kind. So I thought, boy, God was good to her to pass away with absolutely zero suffering. And then I saw with my cat too. Absolutely zero pain, zero suffering. Just it's part of the natural process and we don't want to be around it. We don't want to see it. I was with my wife till almost the last 2.5 days, when she had to be admitted to hospital because, like my cat, lost the swallowing reflex, and my cat also lost the swallowing reflex about 2.5 days before passing away. Then they can't drink or swallow anymore. And my wife had lost her appetite, was slow, just taking in small amounts. The cat did the same thing in the last few days. Everything that he used to love, he couldn't eat anymore. You know, it seems like the body, when it's dying, doesn't need food. It doesn't really even need water. It takes more energy to digest the food. I presume there's no appetite or anything for food. And it's not actually suffering when you don't want food to not eat food and or drink. So as I say, the cat was eating fairly heartily till about a week before he passed away, and then lost all interest in food. We thought he was getting really old. We thought he was going to die a year and a half ago, because he really had COVID at the same time that we all got it and my wife died from it. But he really spent months recovering from it, and he was weak, and we honestly didn't think that he was going to last as long as he did, because he was now struggling to climb up even onto a bed, and he was struggling to beginning to show a bit of incontinence, didn't want to go out, as even at night. So I'd carry him out and he'd do his business and then come back in, and he's wobbly and miss his footing, and you could just the usual things of old age that beset things. So the last week, I'd said I am retired, so I have endless time, and I just devoted the week to being with him and making his life as comfortable as possible, and basically went to the same places he usually went. He spent most of the day the way he usually did, which was just lying around, observing the outside, the birds, the flowers, the whatever, sitting on the fish pond, looking at the fish. So he really had a very pleasant, full of love, joy, peace week. I mean, it puts a huge amount of stress on you who kind of can see the end coming. I don't know whether cats can tell the end is coming. Perhaps they can, but I suppose there's stress on you because you have no control over the situation. You don't know is he going to turn away from you. No, he was loving, he was kind, he was wanting friendship and wanting to be patted and wanting to be loved. And as I say, in the very last evening, I put him on the floor next to his water just in case, but he indicated he wanted to get on the bed. He'd lost the ability to walk in the last day and a half, and that was a bit distressing, not so much for him as for me. And so I put him on the bed. He was perfectly happy there at the last night. But I'd said to God on that Friday night, please, I don't see any point in this continuing one more day. I was feeling quite desperate, because now he can't walk, he can't drink, and there just seems no point to it anymore. And at midnight, I was so glad that I was woken by this loud noise to be with him at the end. So I knew exactly what happened, and it was all fairly, it was all as peaceful and nice as it could be. So, I mean, I'm not saying death is a friend. There's no good thing with death. All death is terrible. But you get good deaths, you get bad deaths, I presume. I've only seen good deaths. I with my wife, saw God was good to her, mighty kind, no suffering. So I was trusting, God's going to be good with this cat too. It's just God is good. This is going to be good, and it puts a lot of stress on you, because you see the end coming, and you think, oh man, I love this animal, I love this person, if it's a person. And you know that your time is limited, but wow, what an honor, what a privilege, what a pleasure to have spent the last week. I spent it around him, just to be with him, to make his life comfortable, to enjoy time with him, to spend my time stroking, and also filmed it. So I'm putting the last week next to this talk, the last week of his life, and you'll see that there was no struggle, there was nothing negative about it. It's just the way of all flesh. We all have to pass away at some time, and it's just wonderful when God allows. God is always good and allows you to go painlessly. I would say, obviously, if your pet has some pain, cancer, is being consumed, any sort of pain, I would then definitely take it to the vet and have it put down. But if it's just dying naturally of old age, it's going to pass away, it might as well, as far as I was concerned, pass away at home among people it loves. My cat always hated the vet. He used to cry like a banshee the moment we put him in the car, take him to the vet. People for for 50 yards around would stop and stare. What is that noise? He hated the vet, and I was going to take him there, and then he's among strangers and lights and cold surfaces and people he doesn't know, and all the stress and strain on. Then they're going to give him a lethal injection. And boy, I was so glad that his death was just like his normal life. He just spent the time doing all the things he liked doing among the people that loved him, spending his last few days in absolute peace, quiet, love, calm. So I'm sure that it's possible that things can go terribly wrong, that I've heard that some animals get very anxious. There was no anxiety, can get all stressed out or whatever. No, or they can become distant or want to crawl away. No, he was just wanting to be with me and to be stroked and to be loved, and right till the end he was happy to have human interaction. There was no stress, there was no anxiety or anything. So it is an option. It's really hard on your nerves to be around it, but wow, I will forever remember the blessing of just him passing away peacefully and calmly and happily and lovingly, and he'd lived out his life. What a blessed life. I got him from a cat shelter, Tears. He was among a whole lot of wild cats. I'd wanted a black and white cat. They didn't have any, so I said, okay, how about a black cat? So they took us to this cage with black cats, and he purred the loudest. He was the friendliest. He was the most. It was love at first sight for both of us. And I said, okay, I'll just pick him up. No, don't. We'll put him. I showed him my cage. No, we'll give you a stronger cage. He was such a wild cat. He hated all his life being picked up. He wasn't that keen on being stroked. He'd been returned to the shelter once before because I think he was a handful, and it took a whole lot of loving to get him. He was somewhat like a wild animal. If he looked like a panther. If he'd been the panther size, he would have killed us many times over, because he was wild, and he was loving most of the time, especially in the old age. We loved him, a lot of the bad habits out of him, but there were times when he was wild, and he would occasionally get this look, and you taunted him enough, and then there was just revenge. And I've only seen that with leopards, how they just want to get their revenge, and if he'd been bigger, it would have been highly dangerous. But anyway, he wasn't. So we loved all that out of him over the 15 years. And he turned out to be had a wonderful life, and I consider the best death that was possible, and that was at home.